Hello everyone. So it is Sunday once more, a bit of a different Sunday because of course it's Remembrance Day today. Just watched the ceremony on TV in London. It was really beautiful service, and of course this week's been an interesting week because of the election in America as well. So yeah, lots of stuff going on this week in the world. So it's been very interesting to read this week. And this week was a debut novel that I picked up in an offer I've never read before. It was about a year ago. It was buy one, get one half price offer. And this premise intrigued me that I haven't read it until now, and I have to say I was quite impressed by it, and it was The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. Now, this book, I will admit, it was difficult for me to get into at first, so let me just kind of set the scene. But because of stuff that was going on with the elections and that, and I was busy at work and everything, I found it really quite hard to get time to read anyway. And then I had Thursday off from work, and it was just a day off. It wasn't, I had a million and a half things I had to run around and do. It was just a day off. I was at home, spent the majority of the day at home, and just sitting and reading. And at that point, right, this book is like 420 some pages long. At that point on Thursday, I was at only 70 pages in, and I was thinking, oh gosh, this is going to be really hard, because I found the first that first 70 pages really quite tough going. I'll explain why in a minute. But then once I passed that 70th page and something happened, all of a sudden I loved this book. I really enjoyed it. And in that one day, granted I had the full day off, so I could read as much as I wanted, but in that one day I read 200 pages. I just sat and I just read, and I absolutely loved it. It was great. Now, The Miniaturist follows a girl called Nella in 1686. The first chapter begins on January 14th, 1687, and it's a bit of a weird chapter. You don't know exactly what is going on. It doesn't really make sense, and then it jumps back to October 1686. And we meet Nella. Nella or Petronella is her full name, but everyone calls her Nella. She's an 18-year-old girl who has recently married Johannes Brandt, who he deals with importing of goods and such, and a company because it's set in Amsterdam. The company is called VOC, which is it's equivalent of I suppose like East India Trading Company kind of thing. So he deals with trading goods from various different countries and such. They married a month previously, where she lives in another area of Amsterdam. And she has lived at home with her family for that month until it was, the house was prepared and everything else was prepared for her to come to live with her husband. That time has come upon her. So she's left her home and her family and everything, and she's come to live at her husband's house. And in the house, there are Johannes, her husband, Johannes' sister, Marin, and their two servants, Otto and Cornelia. And it's a very interesting atmosphere, the house in general. Marin is very much in control of everything. Johannes is hardly there. And when he is, he spends all this time in his study. He doesn't talk to Nella. They have very little interaction at all. So Marin runs everything, and she's really quite reluctant to let Nella do the kind of things that she is expected to do as a wife, dealing with the various accounts and all this lot, and deciding what meals that they're going to eat, and what furnishing should be like and everything. No, Marin is in control of everything. Otto is a black man who Johannes basically saved from slavery and brought him home. And yes, although he works for Johannes, he is free to do what he wants, but he decides to stay with Johannes. So this is why he works in the house as a servant for them. A lot of families don't like him because of the fact that he's black, and they kind of turn their nose up at him and don't want any interaction with him whatsoever. So, but he's a very interesting character because he's kind of like Nella in regards to he is an outsider. stuck in this house, in this situation, and he just has to deal with it. Has to deal with all of these things, but he's kind of, because obviously he's been there for quite some time, he's got a head start on Nella. So you can understand, because of that, Nella likes to come to him to ask questions and get advice and all this kind of thing. And Cornelia is a really lovely character. She's the cook basically in the house. She's pretty much Nella's only friend in this story. About as time goes on, obviously things shift and change and all this lot. But she, from the very beginning, she is in a sense, along with Otto, someone who she can speak to and confide in. But they have, her relationship with Otto is quite different from her relationship with Cornelia. Yes, they still talk, they ask advice and questions and all that lot, but I don't know if it's just a thing because Nella's an 18-year-old girl and Cornelia is around her age as well, and obviously is a girl as well. She feels that she can talk to Cornelia about things that she can't talk to Otto about. So, but yeah, they've got a really interesting relationship. Anyway, so she's come to this house and she gets a cabinet from her husband as a wedding present. And this cabinet is a miniaturized version of the house. And there's like 9 rooms and corridors and doors and all this lot. And it's basically a cabinet in which she can get miniaturized furniture for. Basically, it's kind of a doll's house in a sense for her to have fun and build up and all this lot. And she finds a miniaturist in this special book which lists all of different traders and such, and various different things, household things that Marin gave her. And one of them is a miniaturist, and she writes to this person and says, can I have these 3 products? So the 3 products get sent to her. But also are other items, and they are furniture which exactly replicate what is in her house. There's the dogs, which are identical even down to little marks on their bodies. But how on earth would the miniaturist know all these details when she hasn't asked for them? There's all of these weird, dolls of people that look exactly like friends that they know, and all the people in the house, even though she hasn't asked for them. There's all of these things that get sent to her with these cryptic notes, and she has no idea who it is, why they're sent, and why she's being sent these things, and how on earth it's possible that they would know all these details. And as time goes on, all of these items begin to connect dots to do with secrets and lies. All of these characters are dealing with all under this one roof, and Nella has to figure out where she stands with her husband, where she stands in the middle of all these secrets and lies, what she's going to do going forward, and trying to place herself in society as this wife and the head of this household, when she just feels that, she's an 18-year-old girl who doesn't feel capable of running it. So you've got all these different elements that are going on in this story. As I said, it took me until about page 70 to really sit in the story, because that was at the point where she gotten her first parcel, she gotten the 3 items that she had asked for, and then suddenly she finds chairs and dogs and all this lot in her parcel which she hasn't asked for. She's no clue how they know all this information, and it sets her off on her mission to try and determine what's going on. What does it mean? What do these cryptic notes mean? Now, as a character of Nella, I liked her. As time went on, I grew to understand her more, because especially at the beginning, she's very childish. Very, very childish. Like there's a point where she really hates Marin. She just can't get along with Marin at all, and her perfume bottle gets knocked over or smashed or something in her room, and she finds the shards of glass, and she confronts Marin and said, "What were you doing in my room this time?" Marin went, "No, it wasn't me. I've done nothing wrong." And to annoy her, she gets the wedding, Nella this is, gets the wedding cloths and pillows and such, that special material that Marin had bought her as a present, and uses it to wipe up all of the perfume on the floor and such. So she does very childish things like that. On an emotional level, I didn't really connect with Nella. I'm not saying it was badly written or anything like that, but for her being our lead, who we're following throughout this story, when shocking and tragic stuff happened, I didn't feel that kind of in my gut, like, oh my god, how is this gonna change everything towards her. I felt it more, not like completely 100%. This is going to make me cry, sort of, emotional connection level, as I do get with some characters in some books. But I did feel it more for other characters, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, what if that's going to screw that everything over for that character, or do something with that character. I was thinking about them more than Nella. As I said, I don't know if it's just me, how I read it or anything, but as being the main character who we're following and trying to, see the world through her eyes, I was expecting more of a connection to her, which for me wasn't there. But I don't know, maybe other people feel that connection, but for me it just wasn't there. Sorry. Now for the world and everything, how it's written, really liked it. As I said, slow burner, but once I got into it, I was there. I was completely taken over by this story. I really, really liked it. The characters are very believable, and I have to say, I'm not going to give away the ending, but I loved the fact that the ending wasn't all tied up. You know how some books you have all these characters doing all this, that, and the other, and then every single one of their storylines is tied up, so then that way everyone has a distinct ending. Whereas in this book, people don't, and I find that really intriguing. And the fact that the end scene, I'm not going to say what it is or anything, but just so you can understand how I feel about the situation, how I couldn't help thinking, oh my god, but the next day someone's going to see, someone's going to know, so they're going to ask questions. What's going to happen to them? Are they going to have to leave? Or are they going to stay? How are they going to explain this situation? What the hell? But at the same time, that final scene, everyone that is sat in that room, and there is a contentness about them. There is hope. There is such optimism. I was sat, it was really strange. I was sat here and I was thinking, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, like this. But at the same time, I had a big smile on my face because it was so perfect an ending and so beautiful. And I felt happy for all the characters and where they were in that minute, that room. It was wonderful. So even though, it wasn't fully tied up, it ended perfectly, and it hasn't left me feeling unfulfilled for how it ends, because I know some books do that, where they just don't get the ending right, or the way in which they've written it just feels odd. But for me, it really worked. It was very effective doing that. So Jessie Burton, for a debut novel, I liked it. Would I read her second novel, which I think has been released now? I think yes, I think it has now. I'd be intrigued to read it. Definitely intrigued to read it. I'd like to see. I'm hoping that it has more of an emotional. Her second book has more of an emotional attachment to the protagonist than this one. For me, obviously, I don't know for you. It might be perfectly fine, but for me, obviously, like I said. But yeah, I'd be intrigued to read Jessie's second work, and I've read that this was like ages ago, that the BBC have gotten the rights to make this into, I think, a 3-part drama. I'd be very, very interested to see how they adapt this. It was I think because of the time that it's set and everything, I just kept on thinking of The Girl with the Pearl Earring. I haven't read the book, I'm talking about the film in this guy, and I kept on listening to the soundtrack of The Girl with the Pearl Earring whilst reading this book, because it was obviously around that time, and same, country and all that lot. I found it so intriguing. I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. Oh, and one thing I will say, what I ended up doing, because the first chapter, as I said, is 14th of January, 1867, the end of the book is the 15th of January. 1867. And what I did, I then, because obviously the first chapter, because he didn't understand what anything meant and what was going on, I was a bit like, oh, okay, interesting way to open a book. Not that I'm saying I need to understand everything in that first chapter, as it were, because obviously it's a thriller. You need to have something that doesn't quite make sense at the beginning. But what I did, I then went straight back to the beginning and reread that chapter, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe the amount of stuff which is in this book about the secrets and lies, which are referenced in that first chapter, and it just went completely over my head. I didn't take notice. That was absolutely fantastic. So well done, Jessie Burton, for writing that as your opening chapter. That was so clever. I absolutely loved that. So yeah, so that was my thoughts of The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. I think I would definitely read this again. I would quite like to read her second book, definitely, and I look forward to BBC's take on The Miniaturist. Hopefully we'll hear more about that soon from the BBC. I don't know, maybe it'll be starting, I have absolutely no idea. I'm gonna have to look it up, but hopefully if they start filming it like next year or something, could be out by I don't know, this time next year or something. Maybe it'll be next Christmas or you know, spring 2018 or something. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to stop there. So yeah, those are my thoughts on The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think of it. You can leave me a comment in the comments box below, or if you want to show me what you thought of the book in another way, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Entirely up to you. And I will be back soon as usual with a video announcing what book I'll be reading for the next week. Right then, guys. Bye.